Hey, welcome back to 90s Bball Cards. Jake Roy here. So here we are, year 3, kicking it off. So like I talked about in the last episode, we're going to kick it off with a Q&A from questions answered by you to celebrate. So I've got a glass of wine here to enjoy. I've got some questions. I've got some cards. So let's get right into it. All right. So like I talked about in the last episode, I got a bunch of questions from all of you. Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. I got DMs, I got comments, all kinds of stuff, so I really appreciate everybody reaching out. Altogether, I didn't take a count, I probably should have, but I think we got about 30 questions, which is great. I remember the first video we did, which I will link up in the description below, when we did a Q&A, I answered every single question you guys submitted, because there weren't, there were a good amount, but there weren't as many as there were this time. So, unfortunately, I don't know if I'll be able to get through all of your questions, so if I don't get to your question, I will make sure to get to it in whatever post you made with the question. But what I did is I have a hat. I put all the questions in here, and we will go through. I will pick out of the hat, and if your question is picked, I will answer it on camera for you. So, like I said, I've got a glass of port wine to celebrate something a little bit fun that I don't get to drink too often. Some of you know I really enjoy wine every once in a while, so this will be a nice way to celebrate with nice little dessert wine. I've got some of my favorite cards to answer some of your questions, so let's not waste any more time. Let's get right into it with the first question. All right, so the first question is coming from Instagram Talking Cardboard. So I've got my computer here with all the questions. Let me get to that one. All right, Talking Cardboard's question is, what is your most underrated 90s insert? So I'll give you my first one, and then I might actually give you a little follow-up on that. So my personal favorite, most underrated, is the 97-98 Upper Deck game dated, the foil, the parallel version. So this is my penny hardware that I have. I have a few others. These are ridiculously rare cards to pull. So the pack odds on getting any one of them is 1 in 1,500 packs. So 1,500 packs you'd have to open to get any one. So obviously Penny's my PC guy. There were some great stars. Iverson has a card in there. Jordan has a card in there. And in fact, the PWCC auctions that just finished, Jordan PSA 9 sold. It was the first one to sell at auction in a PSA 9 since 2012. So it's been quite a while. And I believe that one sold for upwards of $1,500. So, you can see it's a very expensive Jordan card. These with a foil can be a little bit condition sensitive, but they aren't as condition sensitive as some other foil cards from the 90s. But a really fun set, a really not really well understood set in my opinion. So with the pack odds, these are not serial numbered. I think if they were serial numbered, they would be probably a little bit more collectible. So the estimated print run, some people have kind of run the numbers, and they've estimated it anywhere between 100 and 200 of each card was printed. The most, the sweet spot is kind of 150 to 170, but these are also cards that some people could kind of have not noticed when they're opening packs or whatever as a kid, like myself maybe, and might have just kind of laid these aside, not really taken care of them, so some of them might have gotten lost. So, for some players especially, these can be very rare cards to find, but not only do you have some of those stars, but you also have some players who weren't as big as stars. You have guys like Isaiah Ryder, Vinny Del Negro, Kendall Gill, so some other guys who might be kind of hometown favorites or might be kind of some niche players, player collector guys, but not the biggest stars like Jordan and Penny and Iverson and KG and Grant Hill and all those great players. So that's really my favorite, most underrated set. Kind of my number 2 is something that I've also been picking up, and I also think that those are, I should say, before I get into my number 2, those I think are a little bit underrated in terms of value as well. So while I mentioned the Jordan, I know the 27 guy talked about the Jordan and how on a list that Beckett had with some of the top Jordan cards from the this was made back in the 90s, of some of those 90s inserts. That was one that has not really ascended in value much at all, whereas all the other ones have taken off considerably. That one stayed right about the same price that it was when it first came out. So a lot of these cards, the pennies you can probably pick up for $20, $30 right around that point. I mean, a Dikembe Mutombo, who's a great all-time center, Hall of Famer, has done great things outside of his playing career. That's probably about a $5 card right now. You know, so I did go on ComC a little while ago. I picked up a bunch that I enjoy, you know, so because I want to get some more before, you know, maybe some people gravitate towards it as they start to learn more about it, and the prices surge a little bit, or maybe they stay low, but I just wanted to get some while I could, while I find them at a price that I thought was a little bit below what I think that they might actually be worth to me, you know, and that's just my perception, my perspective on those. So the other one that I've been picking up where I think it's a little bit low is the 97-98. This is the Upper Deck Collector's Choice Star Attractions Gold. So another set. The gold version is very hard to come by. These are also very condition sensitive. Even the silvers are pretty condition sensitive. The gold's even more so. You can see a lot of chipping on the front and the back of those. But those were only available in certain retail packs. So they call them the ACO, I think, retail packs. Not a lot of understanding as far as what those ACO packs were, how you can find them. I haven't found any. I never opened any when I was a kid. So in those ACO packs, they weren't too uncommon, but those ACO packs themselves were very uncommon. And, you know, these don't pop up too often. So I've picked up a number of pennies in the last year that I've found for right around $10 to $20. You know, in the last year, finding that. Before that, I couldn't find that for, you know, $30 was like the best price that I could find. So when I find those for that below that $30 price point, that $10 to $20 price point, I pick them up. So I picked up quite a few this year, and you know, I don't see a whole lot of these pop up on the market. Jordan is in that set, you know, you get all the stars. So thank you, Talking Cardboards, for that question. And if you guys are not familiar, Talking Cardboards has a podcast. Give that a listen. They're actually going through and talking about a lot of 90s inserts right now. So that's something that I really enjoy, hearing other people talk about 90s inserts. So those are my two. I gave you two. You only asked for one. So a little bit overtime there. Let's go with the next one. All right, so on Twitter, the House of Jordan, so Chris, Christina, and Brian submitted a question. So their question was, what's the biggest difference between making hobby content 2 years ago versus now? So, you know, we got through 2 full years. We're going to our 3rd year now. You know, so I can only talk from my perspective, but when I got into making basketball card content, you know, so not just all hobby content, but basketball card content back 2 years ago, a little bit more, I was doing some research trying to find out what kind of content there was, because I wanted to see more, learn more, all that kind of stuff. And the only stuff I could find were box breaks from modern product. I wanted some older product that I enjoyed, and I wanted somebody to talk a little bit more. So that's what I decided to do. So when I sought that stuff out, I didn't find any of it. So I figured that's an area in the hobby content that I can fill a gap. You know, so I was the first basketball card dedicated content for anything that wasn't box breaking in the modern era that I could find. You know, I did find some stuff, like the 27 guy had a podcast that was years old. I found some old content that had kind of, you know, fallen off and wasn't making any new content. So I figured, you know, time for me to kind of step up and make some content for everybody. So, you know, I was, you know, kind of one of the only people, and since then we've had a number of other people, House of Jordans being one of them, with a podcast. We've got Wax Museum, Cardboard Chronicles came around 3 or 4 or 5 months after I started my channel. You know, we've got Talking Cardboards, we've got a lot of stuff. Pack Geek does a lot of basketball card content. We've got a lot of hobby content and basketball hobby content. The 27 guy came back with his podcast. So that's one big difference, is there's just more content creators, which I think is great. The more the merrier. You know, multiple flavors. You got some people who focus on different aspects of basketball cards. So, you know, while I'm just looking at the 90s and I'm looking to bust open packs and show my PC, some other people are talking a little bit more about the history, or some people get into the early 2000s, or some people talk about just Jordan and Luka. You know, some people do interviews. So I think the more the merrier. It's great to have more variety. That's one of the biggest differences. The other big difference, and this is really personal to me, is the quality of my content, in my opinion. So if you go and look at some of those early videos, they were not the best. I actually had just my phone, which is still what I record with, but I had no tripod, I had no microphone, I really didn't understand how to light things. I actually didn't even have my phone horizontal, I had it vertical. I had my brother holding my phone for me in lieu of a tripod. So in some of those early episodes, you can actually see his finger goes over the lens a little bit. Some funny stuff that we can laugh at now, but you know, it wasn't the greatest quality content. In some of those videos, I wish I could go back and reshoot, but you can never really replicate those early videos. So I will always keep those out there. It's something for me to reference. It's something for some people to enjoy. In some of those videos, there's some great information in there if you can kind of get through some of the even more amateur than we are now type of technique. So those are the two differences. There's just more content creators, which I think is great for everybody, and I think that I've learned a lot through making content and bouncing things off other content creators to improve my content. So thank you for that. All right, next question we have here was from Instagram 3coLA. Asked finest, to Topps finest, to peel or not to peel? That is the question. So thank you. My personal preference is not to peel. I like cards the way that they came out of the pack, the way that they came from the factory. I like them in that original state. And with that being said, I know some people enjoy peeling. I know that some of those peels, they had different lettering or different wording on different years. Some of them said to enjoy the card, peel it. So it might have been referencing that Topps was suggesting you peel those. And I know some people just like it shines a little bit better without the peel on it. They don't like the lettering obstructing the player's face or the jersey or the action shot, what have you. So some people like to take the peel off, and that's great and that's fine. And what you want to do with your cards is great, as long as you're, you know, not truly altering them. I know some people do consider taking the peel off to be an alteration. I'm not quite that much of a stickler, but I personally like to leave the peel on. I know that they do, when you grade them, typically denote if it has a coating or not. And I have noticed, I know when I got, you know, back into, you know, digging into some of the stuff, I was talking to a Grant Hill collector and asking them about this exact same question, because they shared pictures of, they wanted to have in their collection the Grant Hill rookie from 94-95 finest with a peel on it and a peel off of it in both the base and the refractor. So I was asking them, hey, you know, I want to know, what do you think? And they were saying, well, they personally like to have the peel on. They also noticed that the price difference, or the value in the open market, was about 10% more for the cards with the peel still on it. You know, so that was their, I haven't done any sort of empirical, you know, data gathering to see if that's holds true, but that's what they had told me. And, you know, I tend to like to have the peel on it anyway. But I know that also other people will take the peel off specifically for purposes of grading. So sometimes when you take the peel off, it does give it a little bit of a better surface grade. I have seen some cards come out of the packs with a peel still on it, but the peel was not in great shape around the edges. You know, so if you're looking to get a high grade card, you know, taking the peel off might help you with that. Now, when my brother and I got the Jordan Round Ball Royalty Refractor in our first video, and we sent that out to BGS, we definitely left the peel on that. You know, so it came back with a good grade, but, you know, maybe it could have gotten a better grade if we took the peel off. Who knows? We won't know because we're not going to test it, but, you know, that's my take, is leave the peel on it. All right, on YouTube, G-Flash, what historical reference materials do you utilize in preparing for your sessions? I'm always amazed by the in-depth information you provide for each box or pack you're opening. The little tidbits continually help me look out for things in my old basketball cards. So thank you very much. That's a very high compliment. I try to share all the information that I have. You know, some of it I've gathered over time. You know, so I you know, don't necessarily consider myself a terribly in-depth researcher, but I'm glad that I can give people some deep cuts sometimes on some of these cards. So what I personally use is I always keep around an old, you know, not too old, but relatively old collector's Beckett. So they have an annual collector's Beckett for basketball cards that comes out. So it doesn't really matter because I'm not looking at it for prices, because we all know that we look at eBay and other sources for prices. But I'll look in there, you know, whether it's a 2018 copy, 2016, doesn't really matter. As long as it's got all the different offerings and everything from the 90s is in there, I'll look in there. So if I'm looking at, you know, whatever the set might be, let's say it's 97, 98 Topps, I'll look in there. It'll give me all the odds. You know, sometimes the odds are a little different listed on the pack, and sometimes they don't have all the different variations in that collector's Beckett, but it'll give me a rough idea if I can't look at the pack for whatever reason. And usually it'll give you a little blurb, whether it's describing what is, you know, what the set was made for, if it's an insert set, describing maybe some of the nuances, maybe there's an error card or whatever. So a lot of the information comes from the Beckett. A lot of it comes from just what I remember as a kid collecting with other friends. My brother was a big collector. He went to a lot of shows. My father went to a lot of shows. So a lot of it is just memory. It's kind of muscle memory stuff that I went through and did. And then a lot of it also is engaging with other content creators and listening and watching their content, engaging with other people on different social media platforms, whether it's Facebook groups. There's a lot of groups for basketball card collectors, whether it's Instagram content and posts, blowout forums. Sometimes I'll get on there. Twitter, sometimes I'll find information. So it's really just kind of immersing myself in this culture of basketball card collecting, but also using you know, those tools on the internet sometimes. But that collector's Beckett comes in handy a lot of times for some of those specific details on some of those insert cards. But as we found, sometimes there are some details like those gold minted in Springfield cards that, you know, even those collector Becketts don't know, you know, too much about. So that's what I use. Thank you again for that nice compliment. All right, on Instagram, Lingua Sports Cards had a question, is what's a 1990s insert set that a lot of people like but you don't, and vice versa? So I did talk about some of my favorite insert sets in an earlier question. So we've got the Star Attractions that I don't think a lot of people know a ton about, and it doesn't get a whole lot of praise. And we've got the Game Dated from 97-98 Upper Deck. So two insert sets that I'm not as fond as other people on. So one, we have the 97-98 Fleer Metal PMGs. So we've got the rubies and the emeralds. So I don't have any in my collection, which probably goes into this a little bit, but I think those are a little bit overvalued. Now, obviously the greens, there's only 10 of those. We saw Nat get that great green Jordan. We've seen Cardboard Chronicles Josh get the Penny PMG green, which are, you know, great cards. You know, but when you're looking at, you know, let's say a penny, for example, those are selling for $20,000 to $30,000. You know, there's only 10 of those, so it's really hard to compare that to any other card in the 90s. But, you know, that's a significant amount of money for a Penny Hardaway card. And then, you know, you've got the Kobe, which sold recently, and it was an altered Kobe at that. So that one sold for just shy, or right around $150,000. You know, $150,000 is a lot of other cards and other things in life that you can buy. So, you know, those seem like incredible amounts, and you know, I just think they're a little bit much, a little bit rich for my blood. I'm not a huge fan. You know, I do have, you know, one of the later Fleer retro sets. I've got a Jay Williams. You know, I like Duke, I like Jay Williams, so I did pick up that just because I think it's something that is an interesting piece, because the PMGs are so, you know, highly respected in the hobby, but not something that I'm too, I get too excited about. You know, and mainly because when I was a kid, not only because they're overvalued in my opinion, but when I was a kid, the PMGs were not something that many people talked about or many people cared a whole ton about. A lot of people didn't understand that the last 10 were, or the first 10 were green, and then the other 90. But there's a lot of other cards that are numbered to 90 or numbered to 100 or numbered to 50 from the 90s that aren't worth anything close to the PMG reds. So you know, that's just a little bit of my reasoning. I know that's not a popular opinion. Obviously, I'm in the minority. You can see the eBay listing and the blowout posts and all that kind of stuff. Those are very popular cards. But that's okay. Sometimes we got to be in the minority and find other things that suits our fancy. You know, I collect for the enjoyment and for the cards that I like, not necessarily for the value. So that's just my take on that. Another one is the 98-99. To double check myself. Flair Showcase Take It To .net Penny Hardaway. Well, this is the Penny Hardaway, but the set in general. So these are numbered to 1,000, and you know, I think this is another one that gets a little bit too much hype and a little bit too much value. So, you know, the penny, it's numbered to 1,000. That one sells for right around $100 typically, unless you find one that's missing the serial number, which I would stay away from. Some of them are missing some of the foil, some of them are damaged. You know, so you do see some of those kind of like off things, but you know, the actual pack pulled ones, numbered to 1,000, $100 for the penny. You know, you've got a Kobe in there, you've got a Jordan in there. Those go for a significant amount more. You know, they're a neat set. It's a unique name on the set, but it doesn't hold my interest in, you know, if I'm looking at getting that, or, you know, something like the 99 2000 Stadium Club Chrome first day issue, which is numbered to 100. I would rather get the Stadium Club Chrome, and those don't sell for $100. So, you know, that's just my personal opinion. Again, you know, the market dictates what the market wants those things to be worth and what people are willing to pay. And, you know, I'm in the minority on those. So those are two of the inserts cards that I am not as high on as the market. But then we've got the game dated and we've got the Star Attractions Gold that I'm a little bit higher, I think, than the market is on those. So that's my opinion, and thank you, Lingua. So Lingua Sports Cards, if you guys don't know, has had a historic YouTube channel. I know, you know, he hasn't had newer content recently, but when I was actually getting into this, his channel was one of the first ones that I found that went through different personal collection stuff in a way that I wanted to do my own stuff and share what I really enjoyed about the cards. So if you haven't checked out his channel, please go check it out. He's got some great information, some great cards, a great personal collection, and you know, that was one of the inspirations for me to get this all started. So thank you for what you do on your channel as well. All right, next question. Second one from Lingua Sports Cards. So the second one from Lingua Sports Cards, basketball, embossed refractors numbered to 263. Just talk about 97-98 Topps Finest. Why are these cards relatively cheap? You know, so this is from the 1997 Topps Finest set. We did do a box break. My friend Joe had a box break, or had a box that we brought up, and we broke those, and we did pull out a silver embossed refractor, and we were all, you know, oohing and ahhing over how beautiful those cards are. You know, they're numbered to 263 also, which adds to the collectability on those, and I love those. I absolutely love that that parallel. It's kind of a number of different parallels. You've got what is now the Panini Mosaic refractor pattern, which out of all of the Topps Finest refractor patterns, you've got the base refractor, which they had on bronze. You've got that, you know, mosaic, if you will, and then you've got the atomic refractor that they had on all of the golds, and then later on they did some different stuff for atomics. But the silver is by far my favorite refractor pattern. I know typically people like the atomic because that's the highest, most scarce one, but the silver was the one that I always really liked. And, you know, I love those refractors. The refractor pattern on the front and the back, beautiful cards. The embossing really highlights the player and that action. And then I also loved everything serial numbered. So a little bit about why I love those. But, you know, it's really a good question why those are relatively cheap. I think that probably a lot of people who are looking for the cards from that set are looking for the golds, and the golds that also add the die cut to it, which is phenomenal. And then they are also numbered to 74. You know, really, it's hard to beat that. You get a little bit of almost every piece that you could want in a 90s card on those gold ones. So that's my opinion. I think people are looking for the gold. If they're looking for a rare card from that set, they're going to go after those gold. They're a lot more rare. It's a harder chase. But the penny is also one that's eluded me. So that penny silver embossed gold, or that silver embossed refractor from 97-98 is one that I have not been able to get my hands on. Some of them have popped up on eBay with what I think is too high of a bin. You know, so I leave those alone until I can get a price that I think I'm willing to pay for it. But that's my take on why I think those are relatively cheap, and I agree with you. I do think that those are a little bit undervalued, you know, with the exception of when those pennies pop up. You know, but that one that we pulled, it was a beautiful card, and one that I know Joe is holding on to. He's not letting that thing go at all because he, you know, loves the look of that card as well. So, just like I do. Beautiful cards, great set. Thank you for the question. All right. Next question comes from Instagram QC Thrift. How has the hobby changed since you started the channel? So similar to how has the content changed, that's a big change in the hobby, is the content. There's so much more content. There's so many more people focused on 90s cards and basketball cards. You know, there's a lot more people in the hobby than there were just 2 years ago. There's a lot more people than there were 5 years ago. And it's just kind of increased exponentially in the last couple of years, it seems. So the number of people and the amount of content, the amount of information that's out there, which I think is you know, a great thing for the hobby, a great thing for people who are getting in there. But because there is so much information out there, you also have to be careful of who you're getting your information from, because sometimes there could be misinformation. Some people can have, you know, other motives. You know, if I'm sitting here telling you, go buy the game dated cards, you know, the penny should be worth $100. Well, you know, what's my motivation behind that? You know, so sometimes you have to look into that. People who have a platform, and not that all people do, a lot of people do great things and try to share information, but you also have to be careful with there being more content to kind of filter it for your own, you know, intents and purposes. You know, if I'm saying, you know, go buy this card because I think it's undervalued right now, well, maybe I'm sitting on a stockpile of 20 pennies and I want, you know, I bought them for 30, maybe I want to sell them at 100 and I want you to go and buy them for 100. I will tell you that is not the case. So, you know, the penny that I have is not moving. The cards that I show and share are PC cards. I'm not actively trying to sell. Sometimes I'll move one if somebody's trying to collect a certain thing. And I've tried to help other collectors out, but that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to share information for people to enjoy the hobby, not investment advice or anything of the sort. But you know, if there's a specific question, I'm always happy to answer that. So that's what I think. There's a lot more information, but you need to be careful with the information. There's a lot more content, but you know, we all have to share our time. We can't all consume everything, and there's a lot more people in the hobby. So I think all good things, but you know, all things to also be careful of too. All right, from Instagram, we've got Vintage Hoops Collector. Question is, top 5 PC pickups during Season 3. So I really had to think about this. I don't know if I can narrow it down to just 5, so I might give you some extra ones. I'll try to buzz through them and not take too long on them. But, you know, so in no particular order, I'm going to start with a couple of LeBrons, which might surprise you. So the first one is the 2016-2017 Prism Mosaic. You know, I was just talking about those silver refractors in 97, 98 that I love. So this mosaic pattern, actually Chris from House of Jordan's kind of sold me on some of these sparkle cards, if you will. You know, not everybody is a fan of, you know, kind of the busy patterns, but this one, harkening back to those finest refractors, I really enjoyed. And this is the first year of Mosaic. LeBron James is a generational talent, so I figured if there's one that I wanted to get, it was going to be a LeBron, and I also got a Steph Curry, but I wanted to highlight the LeBron. It was interesting when I picked this up. It was about, you know, you could get it for $7 to $10. So I picked up a couple of them, and since then I've been noticing that they're selling for $15 to $25, which is, you know, kind of an interesting thing that they happen to go up. You know, I think it being the first year of Mosaic, if Mosaic goes on to be, you know, a really popular set, people could kind of look back at this first year and enjoy this a little bit more. But you know, I enjoyed this pattern, so wanted to get one of those generational talent players in that set. And then one of the other ones is the 2003 or the 2003-2004 Topps rookie card of LeBron James. So this is one that my brother and I had pulled back in the day. This was in my brother's PC. I was able to work out a trade with him to get this into my PC. Coincidentally, those in a PSA 10, you know, so high grade copies of those have skyrocketed, you know, so you're now looking at PSA 10s that are selling for $1,200 to $1,500. You know, a raw copy is about $100, give or take. If it looks a little bit better and people think it might grade well, it might get a little bit more, might get closer to 200. But you know, that was a card, again, generational talent, LeBron James. You know, his career speaks for itself, but a card that I really want to get in my PC, one that I'm definitely looking to get graded in the future, but that's going to stay in my collection regardless of the grade for a long time. So that's one of them. The 93-94 Scoring Kings Jordan. This is another iconic Jordan card. I think this is one that we've talked about every Jordan collector. This is a must-have. And this is another one, you know, of just a generational talent. You know, Jordan, you don't need to say much more about Jordan. That was one, again, that my brother had in his PC. He was looking to move a few cards, and that was one that I definitely wanted to get my hands on. So that's another one that I'm going to look to grade in the future. Those can be condition sensitive with the foil, and, you know, you've got dark colors all around that, so it can show chips in the white a little bit more when you've got a dark background on the front and the back. So another great one. Another one that I'm very fond of is the 98-99 Skybox Thunder Noise Boys penny. So this is one that I have coveted since I was a child. And this was actually one that I got in a trade. So you might remember, you know, back last summer, actually, I went to, you know, this seems like a foreign concept now with how Optic went this year, but I went to a Target, I picked up a hanger pack just randomly, and I pulled that the Luka Doncic pink, which was number 25, and a beautiful card. Very exciting, and I ended up working out a trade with a collector who wanted to collect Luka, or who is collecting Luka, and got a number of pennies, that being one of them in my collection, and that was one that I've wanted for a very long time in my PC. So very excited to get that. You know, since making that trade, obviously the Luka has skyrocketed. He ended up getting it graded out as a PSA 10, which is great to see. That's going to be locked into his PC, he tells me, for a very long time, which is great to see as well. And you know, so I'm happy with getting a few PC items for my collection. He's happy getting a PC item for his collection. And I'm glad that everybody in the hobby wins on that one. Another one, a big shout out to Wax Museum for this one. So this was my first ever legacy of penny. So this is the 96-97, the first year of Flair Showcase. And this is a row 1. So this is the second tier, kind of like that first parallel version. And this is a legacy. So these are numbered to 150. So this was one that he ended up getting, and hit me up to see if I wanted to get that, and we were able to work out a deal. So I was very excited to get my first penny legacy. I'm not the biggest fan of legacy collection cards, but it's an important card from the 90s to get into my PC. So I was very happy to land that one, and that'll be in my collection forever. So excited for that one. Another one that I was excited for was the 1996 SPX, so this was technically part of the 95-96 season. This is the auto of Penny Hardaway, and it's got the COA, so you might have seen that white on the front. That's a COA that this came with. So this was a card that, again, as a child, I dreamt about getting, and eventually it popped up. I was able to get a copy. It looked like it had a clean auto. I was excited for that. So I was able to grab that in the last year, so that's an exciting one to add to my PC. Another one that might seem a little bit strange is the Molten Metal from 98-99. So these are actually metal cards, and this was one that I really wanted to get. I've always enjoyed this set. There's a lot of players in this set, but these are actually metal cards. They do grade typically pretty well. So if you want to try your hand at getting a black label with BGS, these are good cards to do that with. Not necessarily the rarest cards, but they are sought after. They are collectible. One of those cards I would love to have multiples of. And you might remember Jean from Arena Designs on Cardboard Chronicles, on that interview, she talked about how these cards, they had to bake the photography onto the metal. So really cool, the technology there. Those are cards I really love. All right, gonna go buzz through these. So I shared an Instagram post about these recently. These are two of my favorites. The Platinum Portraits, and then we've got the Metal Fusion. I just love those laser cuts. Hopefully you can kind of see it through there. Just one of those things I really love. And I actually like the 98-99 version a little bit better, with the name being cut in there, and you got the full color picture of the player. Something that I really like there. And the last one is another one that I got in that trade for the Luka. So this is the 98-99 UD Choice Prime Choice Reserve. So UD Choice is something that I opened a ton of packs and boxes with my father and my brothers. So one of those sets that kind of holds some memories for us. And we never, ever, ever pulled a Prime. In all the packs we opened, we never got one. So this is something that I always dreamt as a child, what would these look like? Because back then we didn't have all of those pictures that we do now on the internet to see what they looked like. So this is something I dreamt of. And again, something that I got in that trade with the Luka. So I was very excited, again, to get that other item that I've been dreaming about since I was a kid to get in my PC. All right, the next one comes through Instagram from Penny PC 1 cent. He asks, what are your favorite Penny Hardaway Instagram collectors? So other than yourself, I do enjoy your Instagram page quite a bit. So, keep sharing what you're sharing on your page for Penny PC items. Those are always fun to see. But outside of yours, some of the other ones I like, so Treetop Penny PC, he's got a great collection that I love seeing. One of the cards that he's shared recently was the Topps Chrome Apparitions Refractor. That's a card that I absolutely adore. can't wait to get the penny in my collection. I have recently gotten the Michael Finley, which is a great card. I love that set. The refractors with all those colors look, you know, incredible, and they're number 200. Lots to love there. So that's one of those that I do enjoy looking at when I'm looking at some of the penny items that maybe I haven't gotten into my PC yet. Another one is Ming Keng 6984. I think I'm saying that all right. He's from Taiwan. He's got an absolutely insane penny hardware collection. He shares a lot of his cards that are, you know, ridiculously rare, just stuff that I can only dream of getting someday. But he also shares some other stuff, you know, just kind of his life, which is always fun to see stuff that's outside of just cards. I like to kind of learn a little bit more about the people behind the cards too, so that's always fun. So that's another one I love. And then you know, one of the other ones is Penny at the Point. Again, another incredible collection. And you know, he's got like a little bit of everything. I really love the photography that he shares also. So it's not all Penny Hardaway cards. You know, so he had actually a picture recently of the Silky Smooth Penny Hardaway, and I just love how that card opens up and how he, you know, caught that on camera. Beautiful. So really cool stuff on his page. Those are 3 of the penny accounts other than your own that I really enjoy looking at. So thank you. All right, a few more questions. All right, on Instagram, we've got, I think it's Angel Baderas. So he asks, and that's Angel Baderas 62 if you're looking for the account. At what price point or rarity do you use a one-touch for your PC cards compared to just using a top loader? So I wish that I had a scientific answer or a threshold, but I've learned for myself personally, the more rules that I set around my collection, you know, the more hoops that I cause myself to have to jump through, and I don't enjoy it as much. So unfortunately, you know, I don't have a set, you know, price point. I know some people do. My brother, for example, he, you know, would set a price point that he wanted anything that was worth, I think he had $30 or more would go into a one-touch, anything less would go into a top loader. But for myself, you know, there's sometimes cards that just to me look better in a one-touch, or maybe I feel a little bit safer with them being stored in a top loader. So, you know, I'll do what I think is best for the card, best for me aesthetically, and sometimes it's also a matter of what I've got available. Maybe if I run out of one touches and I'm waiting to get a shipment in, I'll just use a fresh top loader, you know. And I've got cards of penny that are, you know, $100 card now. It wasn't when I picked it up. That's still sitting in the same top loader as when I picked it up. You know, that I probably won't switch into a one touch because, you know, I just, why mess with a good thing, right? If it's not broke, don't fix it. So unfortunately, I don't have a tried and true answer for you, but, you know, something that I think either presents better or is a more valuable card, I will throw in a one touch if I have the opportunity to switch it out. But that's not always as often as I would like to go through them. So, all right, I think I'm going to do 4 or 5 more questions. So on Instagram, we've got Mackin' It Happen, and his question is, what's the top card on your want list? So I'll give you 2 actually, and they might surprise you a little bit. So there's, you know, not the PMGs and stuff like that. Well, I do want those eventually in my collection. One of them that I'm searching for right now is the 99-2000 Fleer Tradition Round Ball collection. So that's one that I've opened a bunch of those packs, both in my past but also on the channel. It's a retail exclusive parallel. They come 1 per pack in only the retail packs. So finding one of those, you know, I would love to find one and get that in my PC. They aren't the most expensive cards, but they don't pop up too often, or I would have one in my collection by now. So I'd probably be willing to pay probably a little bit more than market, honestly, because they don't come up too often, and I just want to get that in my collection, you know. And then the other one is, you know, we talked about this multi-metal fusion. I want to get the gold version, or the titanium, if you will. So that's one that I also want to get the gold version of that. Again, one that doesn't pop up too often, and because there is a serial numbered version for some of the players, the penny is not a serial numbered version, but the golds that aren't serial numbered tend to get bumped up in value a little bit more. So haven't got to land that one yet for my collection. All right, we'll do 2 more tonight. All right, so Instagram, we've got Jerry Petre, I think is how you say that. Sorry if I'm saying that wrong. Again, his question is, in this current market, are you buying more or selling more. So I think you're probably referring to, you know, with what we're seeing in the global economy due to COVID-19 or coronavirus, and you know, a lot of people on quarantine and lockdown. So personally, you know, when the market is lower, you know, the typical you know, adage, you know, you buy low, you sell high. And as I'm watching the card market, some card prices are dropping a little bit. I'm, you know, looking to buy, but I'm cautious in what I'm buying. I'm definitely not looking to sell in this market, because, you know, the adage would, you know, say this is not the best time to be selling. You want to get top market value for your cards. So this is one of those times that I'm, you know, cautiously looking to buy things. If there are cards that, you know, I know what I'm happy paying, what I'm comfortable paying, you know, I'm not going to hesitate to buy some of those cards. You know, and again, my take is, when I'm buying cards in my PC, it's all kind of a sunk cost. I'll pay what I need to pay to get the card at the point in time, something that I can afford, that I'm comfortable with, that's within my means and my budget. But once I buy it, I don't really think too much about how much I spent on it. I'm not looking to get an ROI necessarily when I sell it. If I need to sell it or I want to, you know, I'll move it, but I don't sell very often, in all honesty. You know, so when you see a card that I'm sharing, if somebody asks if it's for sale, you know, maybe with the right price, but it's not something I actively do. You know, so in this market, I'm definitely looking to buy more so than sell, but buy cautiously, knowing that, you know, stuff can go down, and you don't want to overextend yourself. So that's my personal take. All right, one more question for the night. And the last question will be from YouTube, Michael Webb. Okay, and a long one for the last question to close it out. So Michael asks, kind of a multi-part question, it looks like. How do you feel about the hobby in the 90s compared to the way it is today? In the 90s, if there was a card you wanted, you either got it for yourself in a pack or traded with someone that had the card that you wanted. Today it seems like it's all about flipping and grading, making it feel like it's more about making money than collecting. Also, so part two, I guess, for the question is, do you think the Panini brand is overproducing cards and having too many variations of a single card? It makes it harder or even impossible to collect their favorite player when there's so many different variations. So, all right, two-parter to end the day on. So with the first one, you know, it's definitely different, but there are definitely some positives. You know, there are more people, you're seeing more people that are, you know, looking at it from the standpoint of, you know, can I buy this, can I grade it and then sell it for more? Can I get an ROI? Can I buy this for, you know, $10 here and sell it for $20 there? You are seeing a little bit more of that, but I think part of why we're seeing more of that is just because we're able to see more collectors. You know, back when I was collecting as a kid, I was really only, what was available to me was what was in arm's reach, so to speak. So my friends who collected, whatever they got for packs or boxes, and then the card shops that were in my immediate vicinity, and then the occasional card show, but there weren't too many at that point in time that I could go to. You know, so I didn't have the same availability to get everything. And at that point, you know, if it was rare within your circle, your town or whatever, it might not have been rare on the national marketplace, but that card could be a little bit more expensive for you to get in your area because it's just not as plentiful in your area. So I definitely think that being able to broaden our horizons through the internet makes us able to get more stuff, but we also have a better barometer of what the true market value is on a more broad basis. So I think those are very good things that we've seen in the hobby recently that weren't there in the 90s. Just being able to get more access to more items in more quantity. You know, some of the downfalls are definitely, like you said, you know, some people are just in it for the monetary gain. You know, I don't like to see that. I like to see people who are, you know, kind of true passionate collectors, but that's because that's what I am. And the people who are in it for the monetary gain probably would rather see more people in it for the monetary gain. So, you know, that doesn't bother me too much. It does bother me when people are hoarding retail product. That definitely does grind my gears, you know, for a Family Guy reference. You know, I don't like seeing that. That's definitely something I didn't see in the 90s. You know, if Topps Chrome, when it was a retail release in 96, I didn't see much of it in retail, but people weren't hoarding it and then trying to drive the price up a ton. You know, it would typically end up getting to a hobby shop and sell for, you know, a relatively fair price in my estimation. So that's one aspect I don't really like. So to the point about Panini, I do think that, you know, what we're seeing in, you know, some of the pop counts and stuff, you know, if you look at, you know, the Luca Prism, you know, pop reports and stuff, they do seem to producing a ton. It does seem like it's going a little bit more towards the early 90s, late 80s junk wax production print runs. You know, but I don't fault Panini. You know, they're in the business to try to make money. It's not necessarily their job to police the hobby. You know, you might wish that they care a little bit more about the hobby that they're servicing, which would be nice to see. But you know, if they're seeing the demand, they need to either meet the demand with more product, or they're going to raise the prices to kind of, you know, you got to get that supply and demand curve to an equilibrium point. So you know, that's what they're going to do. And you know, I think some of the hoarding that I was talking about of retail products plays into their demand curves that might show a false positive on there. You know, if somebody's going in and buying up all the Prism as soon as it hits the shelf to then go sell it on eBay, is it actually selling through on eBay? Well, when Panini's looking at it, it sells through on their end, so they're going to probably either produce more or put the prices higher, so it, you know, slows it down a little bit. But if it's not actually getting to the end consumer, if people are just looking to be a middleman, you know, it doesn't necessarily give them a true representation of what the true market demand is for that product. So I do think that's problematic. You know, so I am very cautious when I pick up a modern card, because I do see, you know, these print runs and the prices that some of these cards are going for don't seem sustainable. But you know, it's a new time. You know, to the point about all the different parallels. Yeah, I mean, we talked about it. I was on the Wax Museum podcast. We talked about all the different unique versions of rookie cards now. It's just unprecedented. You know, in just Prism alone, you've got 30 or 40 different parallels. You're right. Player collecting the way that I did it in the 90s is not something that seems like it's too plausible for collectors to do now. But I think Eric from those back pages actually talked about it. I think he made a very good point where he said, because there's so many different options, it gives collectors the ability to really hone in on what their specific lane is. If you really like maybe a colored variant that goes with your player's jersey, you know, so for me, if I'm looking at penny prisms, maybe I'm going to go for the blue prisms because that goes with the Magic jersey. Or maybe I'm going to go for, you know, if I've got green, maybe I'm going to go for the Utah Jazz because they've got green in their jersey, or the Pelicans, you know, with gold parallels or stuff like that. So I think that you can kind of hone in on something that, you know, maybe the blues aren't the most collectible thing, but it's what I like, so I can just focus on what I like, and I don't have to worry as much about, well, I have to go and get the penny refractor rookie because I have to get it for my collection because I want to complete all the rookie cards, and that card is too expensive for me as a kid, maybe. You know, so I think that that is one of the positives that we do see with the vast number of parallels out there. But at the same time, if you want to be a super collector and collect every single parallel, that's a monumental task. I have seen some people, I know Drummond Collector, he's focusing on just the optic parallels of Drummond, so you can kind of pick your set that you like and then focus on the parallels of those, which I think is another cool tactic. So again, I think they're all in the same range of, you know, you're picking kind of your lane as a collector of what you really like, and you can just focus on that and kind of block out some of the other noise, because there's so much other stuff, and other collectors of the same player are going to, you know, probably pick a different lane, and you might find people in your lane of your player that collect a different player. So maybe if you collect Drummond, you might find somebody who collects Miles Turner, but he also collects all the optic, you know. So I think that's kind of a cool thing we're seeing develop in the hobby, because it has moved more towards the parallels, you know. But we'll see how it goes over time. You know, maybe we see the prices bottom out at some point because, you know, it seems that these print runs are too high. Maybe they sustain because there are so many parallels and there's kind of that manufactured scarcity with grading. Only time will tell. But it's exciting to see so many more people come in and see a lot of different ways of collecting that just weren't possible in the 90s. So those are the answers. That's all I'm going to get through. I'm sorry if I didn't hit your question, but I will try to get back to you on the social media site that you asked the question through. So if you made it this far, thank you. Thank you for the celebration. Cheers to season number 3. And many more. So luckily I didn't drop any wine on my shirt. That's good. I don't want to stain a white shirt. I didn't think that through. But thank you for coming down this trip through memory lane with me. Thank you for coming, chatting, dropping me questions, just engaging in this content. It's been exciting. It's been fun. I'm looking forward to doing this for a long time. And, you know, as long as you're here sharing it with me, enjoying our passion in this great hobby, I'm going to keep doing it. So thanks. If you're new here, please consider subscribing. Hit the bell icon so you don't miss any videos in the future. New videos like this will always drop on Wednesday. Any bonus content will drop on Friday. And if you want to check out some of the merch, the link will be down in the description below. If you want to see our first Q&A, I will also put that link down in the description. You know, some other questions that kind of get into stuff outside of cards. So maybe that'll be fun for you to watch if you haven't seen that before. Thanks. We'll talk later.